Migrating to another country is not easy. It comes with many rules, regulations, and requirements, as well as fears and sorrows, but also hopes and dreams. One of the most frequent reasons to migrate is the prospect for better job opportunities. And while the demand for skilled labor is growing, so is the pressure to migrate in some parts of the world. To tackle these issues, countries are forming migration partnerships to support a fast and easy move while ensuring migrants' rights. At the same time, many labor migrants and those who are willing to make a move do not know where to start and may even find themselves in the wrong hands of smugglers or human traffickers. To tackle this double-sided sword, the idea for Migrant Resource Centres was born. Today, we will explore how they support both migrants and governments to embark on a safe journey of migration. Today I have the pleasure to welcome 3 ladies working in 3 different locations, but all of them are working on the Migrant Resource Centres. Golda Myra Roma, Labor Migration Expert and Senior Project Manager of the Migrant Resource Centres, is joining me here in Vienna. Welcome, Golda. Very happy to have you. You're also a labor migration expert as such. My second guest is Nadia Kashif, MRC Coordinator in Pakistan. A very warm welcome, and I'm curious to hear about your experience on the ground.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for having me over today.
And finally, we have Tiba Ibrahim, MRC Counselor in Iraq, Baghdad. Dear Tiba, also a very warm welcome to you. And we will also talk here specifically about the cooperation with Iraqi authorities.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'd like to start with a few questions for you, Golda. The MRCs are informing and preparing migrants prior to leaving their country of origin. Who are the people that come and what are their most important questions?
So Migrant Resource Centres have different clients and with different profiles as well. So in general, the clients of the Migrant Resource Centres are those who are intending or planning to migrate, or those who are actually about to leave the country already, which means that they have undergone, let's say, recruitment processes and have already identified their employer, but they wanted to make sure how to prepare in terms of departure as well as in terms of how to adjust to their country of destination. But at the same time, we also have clients who are already abroad, who reach out to the MRCs. Either they are already in their countries of destination or they are in transit. So maybe they're on the move or they are in another transit country. And also lastly, and this is the emerging trend in terms of the clientele of the MRC, we are catering also now to returning migrants. So you would see that all types of migrants, from the pre-departure to pre-migration stage, those who are still planning are MRC clients, as well as those who are about to return or who are already returning or have returned to their countries of origin. These are also the clients of the MRCs. Now, in terms of demographics, I would say that in general, and this is cutting across all the countries where the MRCs are located, they're mostly young men in particular. So maybe from the age of 18 to 30. These are the common age profiles of the clients of the MRCs. We also have, of course, those who are already above 30, 35, still with a considerable number, but not as big as those who are the younger young men. So young men, but it doesn't mean that we don't have women clients as well. If we speak of Afghanistan, which is so far actually some of the biggest or one of the biggest MRCs with a lot of female clients, we approximately have around 13% female clients for Afghanistan, MRC Afghanistan.
But Afghanistan is a particular MRC, I think.
Indeed, yes, because of the virtual nature of the MRC Afghanistan compared to the other MRCs in which they have physical office.
Yeah. How does that work with the online?
So, two major strategies that MRC Afghanistan have introduced by reason of the fact that they're virtual. But just to explain further, they used to be physical presence of MRCs before August 2021. But when there was a change in the government, because they have to leave the country, then they have to be set up in a virtual or online form. So there are two modes of strategies that they utilize. One is online counseling. So either they use WhatsApp or phone for counseling purpose, and social media campaign. So you have there the Facebook as the major strategy that they use, but they also make use of Instagram. And this is simply because in countries where there are a lot of Afghans, Instagram is more used compared to Facebook. So it's a limitation of the availability of social platform. That's why they have to use the Instagram. But it's generally Facebook as well as the online counseling. So that's for the MRC Afghanistan.
I would really like to speak on outreach a bit, also more in detail a bit later. But I think it would be also helpful to get an overview. So where are the MRCs located? And maybe also what was the beginning of what was the very first MRC?
Yes,
Yeah.
so there are 7 MRCs right now. One is virtual, as I've said earlier, MRC Afghanistan. We have 2 in Bangladesh, 2 in Pakistan, 1 in Iraq, and 1 in Tajikistan. This is the current setup for the MRCs, but hopefully we are going to open soon MRCs in Sri Lanka, in Uzbekistan, as well as in Kyrgyzstan, and another one hopefully in Pakistan.
Wow, these are, I think, news that are sort of fresh off the press.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is super exclusive breaking news because this was never announced before anywhere else, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. And this reinforces actually the importance and the need of the MRCs. The fact that they're growing in number, expanding in terms of countries of coverage is a manifestation, an indication of the important role that they play when it comes to promoting safe, regular, and orderly migration. What's the beginning of this one? It was actually a request from the government, particularly of Pakistan. So it's in Pakistan, in Islamabad, and in Lahore, where we had the first 2 MRCs. And this is largely brought about by the need to promote better information and awareness strategies to enable potential migrants to make informed decisions with regard to their migration. Ultimately, the main goal is to ensure that they do avail of regular processes, and at the back of it is definitely to prevent irregular migration. Because of the youth bulge in Pakistan, because of large labor migration practices, but also alongside it are the abundance or presence of some recruiters or middlemen or intermediaries who facilitate these migration processes with license or without license, legally or illegally. These recruitment processes have become so complicated and so tedious that people will come in just to facilitate the migration of individuals with fees sometimes, generally exorbitant or high cost of fees. And this need to be prevented. These need to be addressed. And one way for us to address it is to make sure that the right cost of migration is properly and extensively disseminated to the public, or the legal recruitment agencies have to be properly also disseminated to the public. So all this related legal, usual, regular processes have to be more widely disseminated so that people will appreciate them, understand them, and will not resort to all of this middleman or facilitators who are in general not without licenses or not without permits.
It sounds as if this is a huge task to curb this, and I suppose you must be working with different institutions. How does that look like?
Indeed. And one of the key strategy that MRC adopts compared to other MRCs and related structures that were set up in previous years is that our MRCs really closely work with government partners. And these are largely also labor ministries or ministries that are in charge of migration in the respective countries where we're operating. An example is in Iraq, where we are fully within the structure of the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. In Bangladesh, we are located right within the building or the office of the Ministry of Expatriates Welfare and Overseas Employment, and that goes the same way with the other ministries that we have. So we support the governments in their first developmental strategy. And generally, their development strategy includes promoting safe migration. And one mechanism to promote safe migration is awareness campaign, information dissemination, guidance, and counseling to potential migrants. So we are jointly creating programs and activities. On a general sense, MRC as well as representative of the governments are conducting jointly outreach at the community level. They also publish, for example, common set of information materials that are disseminated to the public, and at the same time also bring some concerns and some issues coming from the general public into policy reforms or new programs or new services to respond to the needs of the MRC clients. So it works in a way in a holistic approach because MRC disseminate the information to the public with the help of the government. We receive comments and suggestions from the public. We bring this to the government, and then the government then will expand or come up with some new programs or policies to respond to their needs.
And in terms of numbers, so how many people can you actually consult in the different countries?
Social media is a bit easy in terms of numbers because of the very great impact already in terms of one social media campaign. Over the past 6 years that we have been operating the different MRCs, we have an outreach of approximately 90 million in terms of social media already. In terms of face-to-face or direct one-on-one counseling, we have an outreach of approximately 200,000 already. This is across different MRCs. Now, in terms of the outreach to community, so for example, we meet and have courtyard meetings, for example, in remote locality, or we meet with women migrants in their district or in their locality. So that's an example. We practically have an outreach of around 500,000 already. So overall, we have about 100 million outreach or reach to different individuals in many, many forms, social media being the largest of them by the nature of the social media by itself. And we also have outreach to the community as well as to the counseling. And this is across all MRCs already.
In terms of overall reception, is there also something that you face that is challenging, that maybe you even receive backlash from those people who you cut off from their jobs? I'm referring to the smugglers, obviously. Yeah.
Despite all the progress that we made, there are also some challenges. One is, of course, dealing with this middleman, with these recruitment agencies. They think of us as their competitor or somebody or something that go against their business, that go against their profit-making strategies and so on. So sometimes we do receive negative comments from these recruitment agencies who they think we are destroying their business. So that's one issue. On the other hand, some communities or some individuals also think of us as a recruitment agency. There are also that misconception about MRCs being able to get visas for them, that we are able to process some permits for them, and sometimes are even willing to pay the MRCs for that purpose. Of course, we don't do that because in general, all the services of the MRCs are free, and definitely we don't process visas or permits and so on, but rather we inform the public of what are the right processes towards the visa. So that's the second challenge that we face. The third is they think also of the MRC not just an information service provider, but rather like a support network or a service provider in all areas. They might think that we can give financial assistance or we can give support when it comes to getting directly the job or getting some scholarships abroad. There's limitation to what we can do. Again, it goes back to the basic principle of the MRC, where it is actually there for information, strategy, and awareness campaign. While we do attempt to provide additional services, either directly or through referral with other partners that we have, there are also some issues that we cannot directly respond to. For example, hospital or health-related benefits or services. We cannot provide that, but rather we do refer them to our partners who are able to provide these services. So those are the three challenges.
Okay. You mentioned in the beginning that you are also informing not just the ones who want to leave, but also the ones that want to return. What are the questions there? So I can imagine that it's not so easy to even understand what may be challenges for somebody who is trying to return to their home countries.
The return is a tricky issue because of the different natures of the return and different profiles of returnees. For returnees who are well prepared for their return, it's easier in the sense that they have savings, for example. So when they return, some questions that they may provide or ask from the MRC is, where can I put up a business? What are the requirements in setting up a business so that I can still have an income even if I don't work abroad anymore? For those, however, that are returning because of, let's say, COVID-related matters, where all of a sudden they don't have jobs anymore, or their employees or employers cannot support them anymore. So it was an abrupt, unprepared type of return. It's more challenging because first, one of their questions is, I am mentally distressed because I just suddenly lost my job. How can I recoup the payment of my debt before I left the country? How can I support my family again? What employment opportunities can I still get here in the country, or can I migrate again? And if I migrate again, can I still go to the same recruiter that I went to, or can I pay any recruitment agency? Because sometimes we're in a very desperate situation, and that is the more challenging. Because again, what the MRC can provide is to refer them to available employment opportunities locally, but that's also very minimal and that's very challenging. And if they re-migrate again, then the advice that the MRC is giving is the same way. Don't fall into the trap of smugglers, illegal recruiters, even if they promise you all of this, opportunities, because it's not always true. It's not always the case. So we all advise them of the proper procedure, valid recruitment agencies, and so on and so forth. So it depends on the nature of the return, but largely the returns are mostly unprepared, abrupt, challenging. That's why it poses more concerns as well as more work for the MRC to do as well.
With the new MRCs that you have, you're opening them, or you already opened them?
Still to be opened. We're setting up already the start. We're preparing for the opening. We are getting permissions from the government, particularly. That's one of the major preparatory work. So hopefully either this year, if not early next year, we're going to open this new MRCs.
And how does it work? So was it requested from you, or maybe there were also different procedures behind it?
And largely, these are requested by the governments. too. They have seen how the other MRCs in other countries have worked. They have learned about it, and they know that the situation of these countries are a bit similar to the countries where the MRCs are present. So they see the value of a similar structure also present in these countries. So they requested actually ICMPD as well as the donors to fund similar MRCs in their countries.
Interesting. And they usually exchange via dialogues or.
Yes. So usually the countries where we are working with are part or participants of the different dialogues that ICMPD is actually hosting, or where ICMPD is the secretariat of. For example, the Budapest process, which is the longest or one of the longest running dialogues between European countries and countries in the Silk Routes. All of these countries where we are located, they on a regular basis meet in this dialogue. So also regularly we present the progress made by the MRC, and that becomes like a learning hub for them too, and at the same time using this as a platform to voice out their interest for a similar MRC. On the other hand, the MRCs themselves, the different MRCs, meet on a regular basis to exchange lessons learned, innovations, good practices, and these also encourage a lot of learnings from the different MRCs.
Speaking of best practices, you have an overview of all the different MRCs. What are the differences? What are the challenges that each of them face, or what do they have in common? What are the differences?
The commonalities is, of course, our approach of ensuring that MRCs are working, integrated, and part of a bigger government development strategy. So all of the MRCs that we have are really ensured to be part of a government structure, because we want this to be sustainable so that the government can learn from our side. This is part also of our capacity building to the governments that we have, can learn from how we respond to the migrants. They can adapt these themselves, and hopefully in the long run that they will fund the MRCs too, and that they will take these as part of their strategy. Of course, the flexibility of the MRCs to be able to respond to the whole cycle of migration, from pre-departure, pre-migration, on-site, as well as return. That also is one good strategy. That it is able to respond to all types of migration, whether that's labor migration or displaced migration, or, for example, those migration caused by conflicts, climate-induced migration. That MRCs are able to respond to all these types of migration is also a very good strategy that MRC has adopted, and largely that it can make use of all platforms available, from social media to direct counseling, to use of traditional media as well, and engaging with different stakeholders on the ground. And maybe some of my colleagues will be able to say more examples of this, and that would be a good segue to discuss more country specific, so that they can mention more direct examples from their side.
Okay, and this is exactly where I'd like to bring in our colleagues from the field. Maybe starting with Tiba in Iraq. You are an MRC counselor, and what would you say on the ground, what comes to your mind are the key issues that migrants are approaching you with?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today among you guys. So, for the people who approach MRC Iraq, they approach us for different reasons. I have to mention first that Iraq is not a source country for regular migrants, but rather it's a source country it's a destination country for migrant workers. And I have to mention that when I say destination country for migrant workers, I have to focus on domestic workers. Okay, so whenever we found out that Iraq is a destination country for migrant workers, we found out that we have to concentrate on this point, and we started delivering post-arrival orientation sessions for the newly arrived migrants to Iraq. So we started our cooperation with employment and recruitment offices licensed by MOSA, and we started organizing visits to these offices and companies and meeting the migrant workers and introducing them to the Iraqi labor law, because as you know, they are the migrant workers in Iraq are under the Iraqi labor law, so they have to know most of the points that are relevant to their staying in Iraq. So we introduced them to the Iraqi labor law, to their rights, obligations, Iraqi culture, the sponsorship system. So we have periodical visits to the recruitment and employment offices in Baghdad and also to other governorates. So MRC team could achieve 37 post-arrival orientation sessions for 458 participants. I have to say that all of them were successful. They got to us. We visit them periodically and we talk to them. It's like it's a friendly session because they have to feel that they started belonging to the state that they are settling in. And it's a matter of trust building between the MRC team and the migrant workers who newly arrived to Iraq. Besides that, after orientating the migrant workers to the Iraqi labor law, we talk to them in case they faced any problem. We provide them with the contact information of the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs in case that they have faced any violation of their rights. They can contact the Migrant Resource Center because for the post-arrival orientation sessions that we deliver. After that, if we get any complaints from the foreign workers, we get the full information of the case, and then we refer them to the relevant departments inside the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs.
So all in all, you can say that you're working extremely close with the government. And where are the migrants mostly coming from?
Where are they from? They are from different nationalities, but most of them are from Kenya and Nigeria. So we found out that we have to introduce them about how to deal with the families, because as you know, as they will live with their families, they will work with them. In case they face any problem, we advise them how to overcome the problems, how can they contact the MRC, how can they contact the MOSA, because when I say that, how can they contact MRC and MOSA, because MRC Iraq is located inside the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, and the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs in Iraq is the authority that is so relevant to the migrant workers.
How long has it been in place?
MRC Iraq is open since December 2020.
Okay, so you opened during COVID?
Yes, during COVID. So it was a challenge to open a migrant resource center during COVID because we couldn't receive walk-in clients, but we found out that we have to create channels to contact with our clients. So that's why most of our counseling was through the WhatsApp, Messenger, Telegram, Instagram, and all online social media platforms. But at the same time, the Migrant Resource Center team went outside the center and visited the universities and the vocational training centers as soon as possible. We were wearing our masks, and we were advising all the students and trainees to wear masks so we can deliver our session in a way that protects us and protect our audience.
You've mentioned, or you touched upon information already. How important and how difficult is it to get this information out? So to make the MRCs more visible and to reach the people that you want to reach?
That was a big support to the MRC because we could build very good connections with our stakeholders and partners through these partnerships and collaboration. We could coordinate with all the institutions that we need to approach. I have to mention that most of the institutions that we approach are universities, colleges, and vocational training centers. And to approach these institutions, we have to collaborate with its officials. And the collaboration started with the support of the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs through issuing official letters. That was at the first time issuing official letters because they don't know who's MRC and who's MRC team and what are they going to do. But now we have concrete relationships with the government institutions in Iraq, and especially the universities, colleges, and the vocational training centers. We can collaborate with 44 colleges in Baghdad and other governorates, besides 29 vocational training centers. We started our raising our awareness sessions in Baghdad. Then we went out of Baghdad to visit Al Basra, Anbar, Quds, Sulaimaniya, and other governorates, because, as you know, we have to expand our activities not only in Baghdad, but we have to reach audience outside Baghdad as well. And one of the challenges was in the north of Iraq, because they don't speak Arabic, and they don't speak, most of them don't speak English. So the language challenge was so clear. That's why we could build a partnership with one of the NGOs who's working there, and they can speak Kurdish. We trained them. We provided them with the necessary information to raise awareness about regular migration and the risks of irregular migration to the audience in the north. They started delivering the awareness raising sessions in the north, so we could cover most of the governorates.
Great. Would you like to add something that is important to you to mention regarding MRCs in Iraq?
Yes, I have to mention that when we started delivering the awareness raising sessions, it was about regular migration, irregular migration risks. Uh, that was the main concern. But after that, when we started meeting our audience, students in universities or trainees in the vocational training centers, we could find out what are their concerns. So to curb irregular migration, we found out that the job creation is one of the main points that we have to address. So we have the clients, they approach MRC and saying that they can't find a job. But sometimes we found out not because they can't find a job, but it's because they don't know how to find a job, how to look for a job. So we started preparing CV preparation sessions, how to apply for a job, how to look for a job, and how to pass the job interviews. We got like we. It's the most important thing is the motivation that we get from our clients.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with the MRCs. I would now like to switch to Nadia in Lahore. So Nadia, thanks once again for joining. You are MRC Coordinator in Pakistan. What are your experiences? What are the most common issues that you are addressed with by the migrants?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for having me over today. At Migrant Resource Center, Pakistan, we provide information to all those who are intended to go abroad. Usually, people reach us out to get information about work and study. We also have been reached by many clients who are basically reaching us for verifications of their job advertisements, which they have seen over social media. People have approached us for verifications of recruitment agencies' licenses as well, which we do and provide them with all the information. Many a time we also receive queries from the clients when they have been, kind of undergone some kind of fraud by some agents. We refer them to the relevant government authorities. So these are the sort of the queries which we often receive into our center.
Great. And what is your experience with working with other institutions and with the government?
Regarding the government counterparts whom we are directly working with, since we are Migrant Resource Center Pakistan, we have two of them working in at the moment. We both centers are housed within the government premises. We sit in there. We have a very good relationship with the relevant government authorities. we worked in line with their priorities. And of course, like here in Pakistan, the government is more interested to open up more legal pathways and making people aware of those legal pathways in order to curb irregular migration. Uh, we do consider all those priorities in mind, and when we are going to the community, so when we launch our campaigns, information campaigns, and go to the community, we definitely take this information with us. We do people make them aware about the dangers and consequences of irregular migration, but alongside we also provide them with the information of the legal pathways available for them to exercise those legal opportunities and work, and they can easily go abroad through legal means. There are certain myths are also around migration in Pakistan that usually youth considered migration as irregular migration as cheap, more less costly, whereas the legal migration is considered to be as a more costly thing over here. It's more considered as a more complicated thing because of the documentation and all those things. Uh, but of course, like when we take our message to the communities, we tell them that legal migration is basically less costly thing, and it's more easy and convenient for you. It will definitely lead you to protect your rights as well. So we do make people aware of about all these things, and resultantly, like we have seen, the knowledge of those who attended our session has improved many folds. We have experienced when those migrants who attended our session, aspirant migrants who already attended our session, when they are coming back over to us with more information, with more query requested from their side, it shows that the information we have shared, that it's more is taking most is basically valuable for them, and we kind of building a trust relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. So you are really information is crucial, I think, for your work. What is uh, can you measure at all somehow your impact? I know with information it's difficult to assess, but maybe based on feedback that you're getting, or based on numbers that you see, or based on the requests that you're getting.
Of course, whenever we launch any campaign, or whenever like we are going for any orientation session, we keep this in mind to measure the impact of the message which we are giving to the audience. We have had there are many tools which we use in measuring the impact of the information we are sharing with the aspirant migrants. uh, though it can be measured at many different levels, like we can also like measure the knowledge, the attitude, and the behavior toward migration. But of course, to start with, when we go for an orientation session, we do pre and post assessment at the same time. We do pre-assessment test of those who are attending our session, and after session we also conduct post assessment, which basically help us out in understanding the knowledge change in the knowledge of those who have attended our session. And what we have experienced so far, there is an immediate change which we see, because the information we are giving to them is they are very much interested. We can very much gauge the same thing from their interest, from their engagement during our session. So these are the things that help us understand that the information is whatever going from our end is well received from their side as well. We also did one impact assessment study for all MRCs, and I'm sure Golda can elaborate on the impact and finding on that as well.
Final question: in terms of numbers, how many people have you consulted in Lahore?
In Pakistan, Elizabeth, so far, we have had directly counseled to almost 18,000 clients. And over the reach, if I'll say reaching out through different activities, then we have reached out so far from our activities like pre-departure orientation, community outreach session, our university sessions with the students, and also sessions with the TVAT, like Vocational Training Institute. We are able to reach out to almost 330,000, people over there, over here in Pakistan.
Amazing. Thank you so much from your experiences from the field. Golda wanted to add something on the study that you did.
So this is on the impact, measuring the impact of the migrant resource centers. It's a bit numeric, so I don't know how to best describe this without too much technicalities in it. But what we did was to measure, for example, how far has there been a change in the attitude, intent, and perception of the MRC clients when it comes to irregular migration. And there is an increase of approximately 13% in terms of the knowledge and change in the behavior of clients towards or against irregular migration. And in terms of how they will now access regular means, there's an increase of approximately 17% in terms of the propensity of people, MRC clients, to avail of regular options compared to when they did not know anything about the MRC, or compared to when they did not receive accurate information about safe migration. There's more tendency for them to go the irregular way or reach out to middlemen or to intermediaries or to the illegal recruitment agencies. So just in a very simple way, that's one of the ways by which we measure the impact of the MRCs. However, as you exactly pointed out earlier, Elizabeth, the impact of the MRC, because it's awareness, it's really difficult. I mean, sometimes we take quizzes right immediately after the session just to check whether there is really a change in their knowledge. And indeed, for example, in another study that we made, they now have a better understanding on who really is a middleman, who really is this facilitator, and they now agree that not all middlemen are actually licensed or registered or authorized to do the facilitation. So this changed their perspective. So those are examples of ways to measure the impact of the MRC. And on a qualitative side, on the other way around, what we also try to evaluate is, without the MRC, will there be an institution or a structure that potential migrants can go to seek the accurate and correct information? And so far as our evaluation goes, there is none. So their tendency, therefore, without the MRC, is to go to the middleman, because the middleman is the one who would give them the right information. So the MRC, therefore, defeats, in a way, the business or the strategy of the middleman, and therefore dissuade them to the right path.
This ties in perfectly with my final question for today's podcast. Are MRCs, in your point of view, something that should be expanded in terms of numbers and funding? And do you think this is maybe the number one way to fight irregular migration and at the same time foster and promote regular and labor migration?
It is definitely a requirement, and I'm being biased, being a project manager of the MRC, that there is a need to expand, intensify, strengthen further the work of the migrant resource centers in terms of countries, but also in terms of the numbers within a country. To cite an example, Pakistan, with 250 million people, and we only have 2 MRCs for now with 12 individuals, that is also mathematically also impossible to cater to the large number. So that is one goal that we wanted to have, to really intensify, expand it further, to respond to the growing number of potential migrants, but also the evolving, changing nature of migration. The return, the mass return over the past years also gave us more work to do. So that's really very important. Now, on your last question, MRCs are very important in addressing issues about safe migration, but it's not the only solution. It's not the only one that should address these concerns. The reason why we actually work with the government is we wanted to create a whole of government and whole of society approach when it comes to managing safe migration. So awareness raising is there to help make individuals an informed decision with regard to migration. They know the risk and the consequences through awareness raising, but the economics in the field, the push and pull factors of migration, which is largely, again, economics, conflict, crises, this also have to be addressed. That's why what we always say is, yes, we do promote regular migration. We do prevent people by going through this irregular means by telling them the risk and consequences, but we should also offer them alternatives. What are additional options for them? Because if it's a how do you call that in a layman's term? If it's a really critical issue of survival, sometimes people have to resort to all types of means if they have no other choice. So our key is to make migration as a choice for them by giving them the right information, but also creating an enabling environment for them to work, survive, and live a meaningful life for them as well as their families. Because the driving force always for migration also boil down with the needs of the family.
I would say this is the perfect closing for this super insightful podcast episode. There is still a lot of things that we could be talking about. We haven't touched upon all the topics possible. Nevertheless, I would like to thank you for today. Joining me today were Golda Roma, Nadia Kashif, and Tiba Ibrahim. To all our listeners, thank you very much for staying with us. This was a bit of a longer episode, but it was very insightful. For the first time, we had voices from the field, and we hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did, and see you next time.